Hello every pony and welcome to Chapter 6 of Crisis Equestria. In the last chapter, the main six had to go and get immunization shots for a spreading disease. And when they got home, they found the rather beaten up chronomancer of that dimension. And yes, we're about to carry on from that. So, Chapter 6. Crisis Equestria, Chapter 6. Initialization? No, I'm pretty sure it's initialization. If we're all done buggering about, Tick Tock sighed as the other ponies stressed over her and her apparent state of injury. Fluttershy had taken the initiative to start looking for some first aid supplies. With Lockwood's help, they managed to find a small first aid kit under the sink. Rarity had run some hot water into a few bowls, and was busy soaking some towels to use for cleaning her cuts. I'm going to try and explain this quickly. We don't have a lot of time, hence why I didn't want to muck about with all of this. It's rubbish you're doing, but if you insist, anyway. Basically, it comes down to this. You six need to get home and fast, but not just because you're homesick. Your being here is going to have a pretty severe negative effect on your world the longer you're here. If you don't get home soon, there won't be a world for you to return to. So I'm sure you understand the gravity of the situation. The six mares looked at each other with some trepidation. Flathoof coughed. Wait. You're telling me that these girls are from another world? Pardon my saying so, miss, but maybe you hit your head one too many times. I assure you, I am perfectly sane and clear-headed, injuries aside. In plain and simple terms, yes, they're from another world. Tick Tock nodded. She gave a wince as Fluttershy dabbed an alcohol-soaked cotton ball onto one of her more serious cuts. Ow! Bloody hell! That stings! Pinky snorted again. Oh, I'm sorry, Fluttershy peeped, but you really need to get these taken care of. You could probably use a bath too, if you don't mind my saying. Rarity frowned as she dabbed a towel on Tick Tock's forehead. Good heavens, darling, where did you get all these injuries anyway? You look an absolute mess. Yeah, Applejack nodded. You all look like you done got in a fight with a lawnmower. Tick Tock hesitated for a second. I had a little, scuffle with some pony. Not every pony out there likes what my line of work entails, I suppose. Truth be told. Truth be told, she didn't want to reveal to them that she'd suffered at the hands of an attempted murder. First because she didn't know who the Pegasus Stallion was. Oh god, the yawning's back. Second, because she didn't actually know what he was after her for. And third, because worrying them about that kind of thing would just slow them down. Anyway, once they got out of the city, he shouldn't pose a problem. Whoever he'd been, he seemed the type to go for a more covert and shadowy type of attack, not likely to try and ambush them in the middle of an open field in broad daylight. What exactly is your job, if you don't mind me asking? Twilight asked. I'm a chronomancer, Tick Tock smiled with confident air. We take pride in being the guardians of the equestrian multiverse, preventing the destruction of our worlds against the many natural forces that threaten to do so. We don't get involved in the politics or wars or things like that. Those are superficial events that might tear apart a world at its surface, but time heals those kinds of wounds eventually. We are concerned with what we are concerned with are the fundamental laws of magic and how they affect our worlds. Typically, we're most focused on void portals, though. I left If left unchecked, a void portal just expands and expands, and eventually damage the foundation of the world itself. Interesting. The concept sounds familiar. I'm certain I've read something along those lines before. Twilight tapped her hoof to her chin. Well then, how exactly are we causing trouble back at home by being here? Because you're the wielders of the elements of harmony. And all six looked at one another in surprise. She knew about that? No pony at home knew about that. Your very existence in your world keeps a seal on this. Discord fellow. With you six here, the seal is weakening, and fast. It'll be broken within the next 3 to 4 weeks, so we don't have... Piggy gasped. Oh gosh, Discord's back? Girls, we have to get home soon. We're missing the chocolate rain. Wait, what? Twilight blinked. Back up a second. Discord's seal is breaking? Already? Princess Celestia's seal almost took a year to break entirely. Tick Tock sighed. Apparently your seal was weaker, seeing as you're all mortal ponies, while Celestia is an alicorn. Well, that's kind of a gip. Rainbow Dash huffed. Our seal should just be as strong as the one the princess used. Totally not fair. Well, that's just how magic works, Tick Tock shrugged. Celestia's control of law magic is significantly greater than any of yours, especially since only 2 of you are unicorns. At any rate, the longer you're here, the faster the influx of chaos magic will... See, now you're confusing me, Twilight waved her hoof. Chaos and law aren't really those kind of forces. They're more like, like classifications of magic. How certain types of magic work. They're not... Are you really arguing with me on the semantics of how magic does or doesn't work? Tick Tock blinked in an annoyed manner. We don't have time for... I'm just trying to understand it, Twilight frowned. The better I know what's going on, the better I could think of a solution. I mean, if you're wrong about... Wrong? Tick Tock blurted. My dear, I am a chronomancer. We're never wrong about these sorts of things. Your associate, Dr. Who's, is... Dr. Who's? The clockmaker? Twilight blinked. Huh, well I guess then that would make sense. If he were a chronomancer too, he always seemed to hang around the place an awful lot for a clockmaker. How'd you know him? Tick Tock rolled her eyes. Chronomancers can communicate with one another across the dimensions to a certain extent. He's the one who postulated the whole theory. When he noticed the beginning of the problem after you six disappeared, he's the one who came up with the plan to get you all home. And I think he knows a little bit more about magic than you do. Even if you're the element of magic or whatever. He knows bloody well more than I do, that's for certain. And I think even I'm a little more experienced than you are in these matters, my dear. Pinky stifled another laugh. Twilight narrowed her eyes. Well, that's a little Look, are you a chronomancer? Tick Tock returned the gaze. No? Well then, you have no experience dealing with all 3 different styles of magic there are out there as intimately as we do. You think law and chaos are mere classifications? For heaven's sake, I'm trying to get you home, and you're bleeding to debate me with an... Ow! Fluttershy! Sorry, Fluttershy peeped. You need to sit still. Please? Twilight frowned. Humph. Well, I guess you're right. This is neither the time or place for this. I'll discuss this issue with you later, I assure you, because I still don't think... Come on now, Twi, Applejack said with concern. Let her finish the story, huh? She's just trying to help. Right, I didn't mean to sound disagreeable, Twilight blushed. Go on then, Miss Tick Tock. You say you have a plan? Yes, well, Tick Tock flustered. The plan is to get you to Utopia and ask Harmonia for help. She's the goddess of balance, and... and one of the world's 2 alicorns. Like your world has Celestia and Luna. She has the power to send you home. Granted, so does her counterpart Nihila, the goddess of disparity. But she would not likely be willing to help you. A bloody shame, since you're right at her doorstep. She would make my job easier, I tell you. I guess it's pretty bad luck we ended up in the wrong side of the world then, Twilight sighed. It's a natural occurrence. Bugger all you could have done about that, Tick Tock explained, shooting a look at Pinky when she snorted again. Void magics don't really work properly in the presence of an abundant law magic. That's the kind of magic we chronomancers used to seal void portals at. After all, and since the southern hemisphere has so much ambient law magic in the air, void portals can't really manifest there on their own, hence why you need so much power to make a portal that can sustain itself long enough for you to get through it. There won't be any more natural portals on this side of the planet for a month. The portal you all originally came through was one of many in the portal storm. And this world is now in the midst of the eye of that storm. That is where the unfortunate circumstance is, sadly. So hang on then, Rainbow chimed in at last. You said you knew an awful lot about us, but I've never met this Dr. Hooves guy. Twilight sounds like she has, so I guess I can believe you knowing about her if you can talk with him across worlds and junk. But what about the rest of us? How'd you know our names and stuff? Tick Tock hesitated for a moment, then decided honesty was the best policy here. I had to do a little snooping to find out who you were, so that I could report back to Hooves and try to figure out why things were going wrong in your world. I apologise for never revealing myself sooner, but if it weren't so imperative to rush you all home, it would be the preferred method to wait for a natural portal to send you through. And I didn't want to get your hopes up. Spying on us, huh? Rainbow narrowed her eyes. I don't know about you, Twi, but that sounds awfully fishy. How do you know she doesn't? How do you know she just didn't overhear us all talking about going home and is just making all this up to try and take us for a ride? Twilight eyed Tick Tock carefully. It is awfully convenient, especially since we were just talking about trying to figure out a way home with our own efforts. Tick Tock's jaw dropped. You've got to be kidding me. I'm trying to help you and... But, Twilight interrupted, she did mention Dr. Hooves, and you're right. I'm the only pony here who even knows who he is. And I never mentioned him once in all of our time here. It would be a pretty ridiculously lucky coincidence if she just picked a name out of the blue like that, and picked the one pony that could probably know how to help. Rainbow nodded. I guess that makes sense. Well, if you say so, Twi. So wait, Flathoof coughed. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. Let me get this straight. These 6 are from another world. Them being here is going to destroy their home if we don't send them back. And to do that, you need to get them to Utopia, the other side of the world, in 3 to 4 weeks. Am I understanding this right? That's the gist of it, yes. Well, if you're asking me, you're attempting the impossible, Flathoof frowned. And you are? Captain Flathoof, NPPD, he nodded. I'm a friend, I guess you could say. I've helped these young ladies get through their first 24 hours here pretty well, I'd like to think. If they need to get home that quickly, well, I suppose I'd be willing to help a little bit more, though I can't really offer much. How exactly did you propose to get out of the city? Tick Tock's eyes widened, then closed in aggravated thought. No bugger, I knew I'd forgot something. She sighed. I hadn't considered that. How am I going to get them out of the city? What's the big problem? Twilight asked. We can't just, leave? The city's government doesn't take too kindly to losing taxpayers, Lockwood chuckled. Well, now that I know you're not from here, I suppose, I can assume you didn't see the massive door that leads in and out of the city. That would be the gate. It's like this, Flaptooth explained. To get through the gate, you need a passport. Simple concept, really. But passports are expensive. Very expensive. Like 5 years of my salary if I was working overtime every day expensive. I only have one because NPPD officers of my rank and above get honorary passes, so he can accompany the chief on any of his personal trips to Utopia if he wishes us to go. Kind of a dumb reason, but I'm not complaining. It was free. He shrugged. You never know when one can come in handy. I have one as well, Tick Tock nodded as she fumbled in her vest pocket. My superiors ensured I got one, just in case I needed to do my job outside the city boundaries. That's like pretty rare, that's like pretty rare event though. But enough to make good use of it. So the first problem that we have, Flathoof continued, is that the U6 need gate passports to leave the city. I suppose we could try to sneak you out. I know plenty of ponies every year try it, but it's extremely risky. None of them have ever been heard from again, and we don't know if that means they made it to Utopia and are living the high life, or, well, otherwise. At any rate, breaches in the outer wall are few and far between, and most of them don't lead into any neatly organised areas that are safe from the dangers of the wastelands. So the Bleeding Gate is our only real option. Pinky didn't try to hold a giggle in this time. Tick Tock shot another glare. What the bloody hell are you laughing at? Pinky snorted and waved her hoof dismissively. Oh, nothing, old bean. Go on, I'll keep quiet. Making fun of our British. It's not nice. Lockwood coughed. I think then I may provide a solution. You, Lockwood? You know you don't have the money for this sort of thing. Not your salary. Flathoof chuckled. I don't care what kind of connections you might have. Even with a discount, six of these passes would break your bank so fast your head would spin. Heck, if we all pulled our money together, we might be able to afford one. Ah, my dear friend, you underestimate my connections at times, Lockwood smiled. He rummaged through his coat pockets. See, I also have a gate pass. Flathoof's eyes widened. Where in the hay did you get the money to afford one of those? Why do you even have one? Oh, I figured I might want to leave this little burg one day. See some greener pastures, or so the saying goes. I've just been saving up for a little airship ticket and the bits to get a nice house. Somewhere on the other side. The going is slow. I don't make too much personally. And get most of my better living conditions through the repayment of favours from others. Okay, but still, how did you afford it? What kind of discount did you get on that thing? What kind of favour did you call in? Flathoof chuckled. I can't imagine the hoops. I can't imagine the hoops you needed to jump through. Show me your gate pass, Flathoof. What? Just let me see it. Flathoof took his out of his uniform pocket and handed it over. Lockwood held both of them in Flathoof's face. Now, I want you to tell me the difference between them. Aside from the personal information, of course. Flathoof looked between the two and shook his head. They look the same to me. Where are you going with this, Lockwood? My gate pass is fake. Flathoof's jaw dropped. You kidding? Not at all, dear boy. And he shuffled his back into his coat. Completely indiscernible from the real thing, yes? It works well enough on more than just in your eyes, too. It even fools the card readers at the gate itself. I've tested it. It not only works, it works perfectly. If I had the money to afford moving, I'd have done it ages ago. I'm just not confident enough to try and make the trip on foot. And I assume then that your plan is to get us more of these, for our friends here, Flav nodded. Precisely, and I know just the pony to go see, he grinned. The outer district was not known for a great deal of things. It was not known for its cleanliness, for its safety or security, for its quality economic, employment, or educational offerings, for its high-class medical services, its good mannered social network, its helpful social workers, or everyday citizenry. Or least of all, the desire for ponies to move and live there. In fact, it had been statistically proven every single year since New Pandemonium City abandoned the outer district in the process of moving most of the quality services and government offices into the mid-districts, that the outer districts were known for having exactly the opposite of all of those qualities. In shorter terms, the place was a dump, a heap, a ghetto, a slum, a pigsty, a run-down old town with more problems in the single city block than there were ponies that lived in that city block. And there were a lot of ponies living in the outer district. It was twice the size of all the mid-districts combined. If one were to account for the gate district in the southeast as part of the outer district, which technically it was, but don't tell any pony living in the gate district that, it was not as densely packed as the mid-districts were. Both the mid and outer districts were actually had relatively comparable populations. But that didn't change the fact that the ponies living there lived in what essentially amounted to a squalor. They were impoverished, mostly unemployed, uneducated, and imperiled. And the ponies that could claim they were actually comparable in health and habit to the mid-district ponies were so few and so far between, it was like looking for a speck of gold in a sandy, windswept beach. Lockwood knew a few of these diamonds in the rough. One of them was a young unicorn named Keen-Eye, and she was going to help him with his most recent conundrum. Her little home was located in the southwest region of the outer district, relatively close to the divider wall that separated them from the mid-district, both physically and symbolically. The Ponyville natives looked on in rather depressed disbelief at the state of the outer district. How can any pony live like this? Twilight asked. I don't mean to sound rude, but this place is a dump. That's putting it mildly, darling, Rarity snorted. I can't imagine the quality of ponies in this area is, if this is what their living conditions are like. Surely even Applejack and Rainbow Dash can agree that this is perhaps just a little in need of some tidying up. I reckon I could use a little work here. I reckon it could use a little work. Applejack nodded. Don't the city care none about these ponies out here? Nope, not a lick, Flathoof said sternly. And it's a shame too. If we took better care of these ponies, perhaps the crime rate wouldn't be so high. I know you can't see much of it here by the divider wall, but we went deeper in. If we went deeper in, I don't think many of us ponies would be too frightened of just one NPPD officer, if you catch my drift. Rarity shuddered. I don't even want to think about it. It's not as bad as it could be, though, Lockwood said with some air of pride. You should have seen how this part of the district looked when I was just a little colt. Some volunteer organisations do an awful lot of work around here to make it less like the rest of the district. We can only do so much. There's a lot of ground to cover, but we can do what we can. You're a part of these volunteer groups? No, you're a part of these volunteer groups? Fluttershy peeped. Part of one? I helped found one, Lockwood smiled, tipping his hat. When he went travelling outdoors, he always wore a wide-brimmed fedora to match his raincoat. and even carried a little black umbrella with him. Never a bad idea to be prepared for a freak acid rainstorm, he said. Oh, he'd say. I called in a few favours with some other like-minded ponies. Got together for some supplies and stuff. We ran a little food donation drive once a month to try and help out the ponies around here. I know dollar foods is not much, but all they're able to afford out here is scant supplies of dollar brown. And that's just, well, imagine eating a dirt with gravy made from more dirt. That's pretty much what it tastes like, and it probably has just as much nutritional value too. Goodness, Twilight frowned. That sounds just plain yucky, Pinkie Pie chimed in. They should really make some of them cupcake flavoured or muffin flavoured or even apple flavoured, chuckled Applejack. Yeah, Pinkie agreed. Ooh, treat those weird old foods like jelly beans and make them every colour you can and give every colour a different flavour. Like root beer or candy cane or peppermint and cotton candy and butterscotch and chocolate and strawberry shortcake. Food. I could really go for some jelly beans right now. Well, we tried to get them some of the healthier stuff, Dollar Green for example, Logwood continued. Every now and then I tried to slip in some Dollar Red for the colts and fillies, yeah. It tastes a lot better. The young ones love the stuff. A few more derelict streets and at long last the group arrived at the house of Kenai. It was relatively tidy compared to the rest of the surrounding area, but only just so. Enough to be noticeable to any pony looking for it, but not enough to make any pony think whoever lived there had plenty of bits on hoof that might be worth stealing. It was blue, a dirty blue, like murky water that had seen better days, and was abused by mud and grass and basically amounted to looking more like a bluish sludge than water. They didn't live in apartment complex or towers or anything of the sort out here. They lived in houses which made Twilight and her friends feel a little more at ease. But the houses were small, dirty, and probably not even worthy of being called a habitat, even for the assorted bugs and rodents that normally enjoyed such squalor. Flathoof grumbled to himself in annoyed disappointment. He did not like having to wait outside, but Lockwood insisted that he do so. Not for watching out for hoodlums or anything of the sort, and certainly not to keep any of them safe, just because he assured Flathoof that what was going on inside the house was not only illegal, but actually a Class 8 felony that would land any pony in the group if caught, not in just a little jail cell back in MPPD Central, not in a high-security prison in the Gate District, not even in Retribution Hall, the underground prison establishment set up for the most dangerous and psychotic criminals New Pandemonium City could actually catch. No, a Class 8 felony would land them all in a locked cage and fired out of a cannon into the sun. Well, at least that was what the rumour was. At any rate, it meant Kenai would likely not want to be much assistance if there was a cop around. Inside the house was a slightly different story. It was neater and tidier, though still dirty by most standards, rarities especially. Everything was neatly organised and laid out, but there was a distinct layer of dirt and dust on nearly every object in the room. It was cramped and rather comparable to the Six Mares' apartment, though obviously smaller and built for one and housing rather than built for four and housing six. None of those who had entered the house, nor the home's actual resident, was anywhere to be found within eyesight. They were not in the den, they were not in the kitchen, they were not in the bedroom. The door to the basement was closed and locked tight, but as it would happen to be, that was where they were. The basement itself was dark, but significantly better than the upper levels. Here it was not only neat and tidy, but actually somewhat clean. Not glistening or spotless or even really commendable, but acceptable. Like what Rarity expected Applejack's or Rainbow Dash's rooms to look like when they were done cleaning. Good enough is what she called it. The 6 mares sat patiently on the sofa that was down here, noting that the whole place seemed very much like a waiting room. Kenai must do things like this often, Twilight asked. Somewhat, Lockwood answered. If I had to venture a guess, I'd say that maybe 1% of the gate passports out there are her handiwork. Hang on, I need a drink. Okay. That's right, sorry about that. How does she do it anyway? Well, gate passports are actually made by altering the barcode on your ID. Kenai used to work for the NPRD a few years ago, until she found she could actually make more money by selling her own gate passports rather than doing it legit through the NRPD. No, it's NPRD. And being paid basically nothing compared to what she was charging. She claimed the conversation process was so easy that a pony with the right tools and drive could make them herself for a tiny fraction of the cost. So here we are. And these gate passports are good enough quality to fool even the machines at the gate, Tick Tock asked, skeptical. Seems a bit far-fetched. Tested my copy out myself. Got to check out airship docking and everything. Then turned right back around when I saw the price of airship tickets. Those you can't fake. And even if you could, I don't think I'm brave enough to try. You can bribe yourself out of trouble with the MPPD, but the military is a different story. Military? This thing has a military? Twilight blinked. I thought armed forces were for entire countries, not just cities. Granted, this city is probably big enough to be a country. Don't they have military back in your world? Lockwood said. Sure we do, Twilight nodded. Not so much that they see too much action. Our little Equestria is relatively peaceful with its neighbours. They mostly worry about natural disasters and monsters from the ever-free forest, though some exceptions pop up here and there. Rainbow proudly boasted, "Yep, and my heroes, the Wonderbolts, serve a double purpose as the best stunt fighters in all of Equestria, and as Princess Celestia's Royal Air Force. I've been wanting to join them since I was little. They're so awesome." Actually, I think the Royal Guard is a division of the Army too, now that I think about it. Twilight tapped her hoof to her chin. I guess we really do have a pretty active armed forces. I can't imagine them dealing with much of the same things that you do over here, though. Applejack nervously shuffled. Can we change the subject? I ain't feeling too keen on talking about these kind of things, if y'all don't mind. Twilight hesitated. Oh, sure thing, Applejack. Kenai herself finally stepped out of the little room, looking quite I have no idea how to say that, but satisfied with herself. She was a creamy orange unicorn with a bright green mane that she kept short in front and long in back, and her tail was tied in a neat little bun to keep her from tripping up. Hang on. Over her right eye, she wore a large device. It looked like many magnifying glasses, all on top of another. Each one getting smaller and smaller the further away from her eye they got, making it look somewhat like her eye was morphing into a drill in an attempt to get away from her face. With her magic, she was holding a set of 6 little cards, which she handed out to the 6 Ponyville mares, each of them scrutinizing the handiwork, though after a moment they all realized that was rather pointless. They didn't know what to look for. Kenai gave a sigh of relief and satisfaction, then turned to Lockwood. "Now then, Woody," he coughed suddenly at her pet name for him, turning a slight red as he realized that some of the other mares in the room were stifling giggles, though Rainbow Dash was not trying too hard. He tried to avoid Rarity's suddenly scrutinizing gaze. "I believe it's time we discuss the issue of payment. 6 gate passports. Normally that run you a few thousand bits, if you got them from the NPRD itself. For regular customers, I charge 50 bits apiece. Even enough to pay a month's rent. Maybe a little extra food stores if I shop around. Right. For you, well, I would consider other forms of payment," she winked. "Treat me to dinner this weekend. That new fancy place in Central Plaza, what was it called? Chez du Fromage de Terre? Something exotic like that. I hear they actually serve dollar white. Can you believe it? That's the inter-district quality stuff right there." Lockwood nervously adjusted his hat and collar, trying to hide his rising anxiety about being asked out on a date right here in front of the others. "Kenai, sweetheart, as delightful as that sounds, I'm going to be taking a little, vacation for the next few weeks, starting, tonight." Kenai pouted. "Well, that's sudden. Ah, phooey. Fine, I'll just give you a little discount. It's the least I can do. 6 passports for you, 200. "I've got 150, Lockwood haggled. Make it that, and when I get back, I'll give you a rain check on the dinner." "Deal," Kenai quickly slapped his hoof in agreement. "Oh, I can't wait. I'm going to use these bits to get myself the nicest dress, and you and me are going to enjoy ourselves all evening." Lockwood tugged his collar. "Right. Well, thanks, Kenai. I appreciate the help. Come on, ladies. Time to get back home." As they headed up the stairs to the basement, Rarity sided up to Lockwood. "So, what's the situation with you and this Kenai, anyway, She gave him a kind of stern look. "You never told her she had a girlfriend. Or am I misreading the signs here? Woody?" Rainbow Dash didn't try to stifle a loud laugh this time, but even Applejack and Pinkie Pie found themselves trying harder than before not to laugh alongside her. "What?" Lockwood blinked. As her words sunk in, he turned bright red and quickly waved his hoof in dismissal. "Oh, heavens no. Kenai, she's just a little, eccentric is all. We're not dating or anything like that. Not even anything physics, casual. She's just a friend. Nothing more. Besides, she's a little, well, not my type." Rarity gazed again and smirked. "Then what exactly is your type, dear?" Lockwood flustered. "Well, that's a bit of an odd question. Why would you, I say, Flathoof," he called to his friend as he left the house. "We really must be going, yes? Let's head back to the southeast point and pick up some supplies from my place before we get going." As he quickly slipped away, Rarity hummed. "Nice guy?" Check. That was evident enough in his kindly demeanour and his manner of speaking. Generous and kind? Check. The good stallion was already helping them out of an awful lot, and he had still yet to ask for a single thing in return. Decent looking? Check. He was neat and tidy, took good care of himself, and was physically fit. Nothing spectacular. But then Rarity had already learned that her taste in stallions, as far as outward appearances were concerned, were perhaps a little misguided. Sense of fashion? Perhaps not. The raincoat wasn't exactly stylish, but then again, no pony in this city seemed to be. He was shaping up to be quite the gentleman. Rarity stored that idea in the back of her thoughts, quite curious at the prospect of having him along for their little journey. Applejack smirked and nudged her. Well, is Prissy Missy getting an eye for some pony? Lockwood don't look nearly fashionable enough for your taste, if you all ask me." Rarity blinked at Applejack, then gave a dismissive laugh. "Good heavens, Applejack! I am merely trying to make conversation. If the good stallion is going to be travelling with us, I want to make sure we know a little more about him, yes? If he's leaving a significant other behind, for example, nothing more than that. Whatever gave you that idea? Uh-huh, Applejack nodded, with a wide grin. Just between you and me? She leaned in for a whisper. Flathoof let slip old Lockwood into a graceful type. What? Flathoof let slip old Lockwood into the old graceful type. If y'all catch my drift, hint hint. Oh, Rarity chuckled. My dear Applejack, where did you learn such juicy information? Chatting up with Officer Flathoof, are we, Maybe I'm not the one who should be asking others if they have eyes for some Brony, though I can't say I'm surprised. Applejack turned red. What in the hay's that supposed to mean? Don't go changing the subject, Rarity. I'm just trying to help. Anyway, come on, we're falling behind. As Applejack trotted ahead, Rarity smiled and made another inward note or two. Yes, this would work out nicely. Well then, it seems we've got everything in order, Flathoof noted. We just need to pick up these supplies that old Lockwood claims to have. Then I'll escort you six to the Gate District and see to it that you all get through without too much hassle. The group rounded the corner and began their last approach to Southeast Point. I really must thank you again, Twilight Sparkle nodded. You've done so much for us and asked for nothing in return. And you've only known us for one day. Right, well, Flathoof tugged his collar nervously. All in a day's work. Applejack frowned. You sure y'all don't want to come with us? We'd enjoy your company. I'm sure of it. She shot a glance at Rarity, who gave a knowing smirk before turning her attention elsewhere. I've still got duties here, sorry to say, he nodded, though with some regret in his tone. I'll make sure everything goes well getting you through the gate smoothly. That's about as much as I can do. No worries, Flathoof, Lockwood chuckled. I'll take good care of them, I assure you. Just a short little jaunt across the wastelands. A few other areas here and there, no worries, right? I regret that we can't make this easy and get some airship tickets here, but that kind of money is rather hard to come by. Besides, we've got Miss Tick Tock with us as well. She seems mighty resourceful, wouldn't you say? I suppose Pinky tripped. Just randomly has Pinky tripped. Twilight stifled a laugh. Whoa there, Pinkie Pie. Maybe you should have practiced more with these roller skates, huh? Pinky jolted upright. Nope, all okay. Not the skates' fault. My knee just got a little pinchy all of a sudden. Applejack tilted her head. Like, Pinky Pinchy or regular Pinchy? Pinky tapped a hoof to her chin, then nodded quite sagely. Definitely Pinky Pinchy. Yep. That's weird. Hasn't popped up like that for like the last 2 days. Hang on. I was beginning to think this new wood was making it not work at all, but I guess it still does. Phew. Oh dear, we're starting this up again, Twilight rolled her eyes. Pinky, this is no time for your antics. We're in a hurry. The last thing we need to worry about is falling potted plants or something. Come on now, Twat. You all know as well as anybody that Pinky sense works. Applejack pointedly reminded. Now, Pinchy Knee, which one what that and again? I only remember Twitchy Tail meaning fallen objects. That was pretty much the only one I ever get to see. And the doozy one. Fine, if we're going to waste our time trying to figure this out, Twilight huffed. Didn't Pinchy Knee mean alligator in the tub? Nah, that was achy shoulder, Rainbow corrected, remembering well the one too many times Pinky had helped her avoid the rather bothersome encountered with Gummy. Pinchy Knee. I forget which one that is. She doesn't get it that too often. What's all this talk about? Lockwood asked with an incredulous look. Pinching knees? Alligators? What? Oh, that's Pinkie Pie's pinky sense, Rainbow nodded as if it were a common knowledge. It's kind of like a sixth sense, I guess, right? She looked at Twilight for guidance. If there was anything to describe it, I guess it would be, Twilight rolled her eyes. It's all still a mystery to me. I know I said I'd be a little more open-minded, but she's really inconsistent about it. It only happens every once in a while. I don't follow, he shook his head. Flathoof, did they mention any of this to you? This is my first time hearing about it, Flathoof shrugged and shook his head as well. First they're from another world, now the pink one has ESP or something. I tell you, I'm starting to think these past 2 days are just a really bad trip for some expired doula. From some... Tick Tock. You and your story just keep getting weirder and weirder. Are you sure you're sane? Tick Tock flustered. Me? I didn't bring up any of this hogwash. I think it's just as ridiculous as you two do. It's not ridiculous, Twilight said matter-of-factly. I mean, it sounds a little strange, granted. It usually just means something's about to happen to some pony in their immediate proximity, usually me. I'm still a little skeptical on how exactly it works, but I admit it does have some merit. Yeah, one too many doors in the face will convince you, I guess, Rainbow Dash chuckled, making Twilight shoot her a quick look of disapproval. I think Pinkie Pie herself could explain it best, Twilight pointed. Pinkie gave an... there's a frickin' word again. Exacerbated sigh. About time you give me a chance to explain it, guys. Instead of arguing about what sense means what. I mean, duh. You could have just asked me from the start what everything meant, instead of letting me be the only one trying to figure out what was making me feel it. And she rolled her eyes. Anywho, every now and then I get little niggling feelings that mean different things. If my back gets itchy, that means it's my lucky day. Suddenly her tail started twitching too. See? And twitchy tail means stuff's gonna start falling. So you should get under something sturdy. Pinchy knee means something scary is about to happen. But Dashy's right. I don't get that too often, since nothing's scary ever. An ear-deafening explosion burst into the air several dozen feet directly over the heads of the group. Above them, a raging fireball blasted outwards from the 84th floor, spraying debris in all directions. Large chunks of metal and concrete and brick and wood and glass rained from above. A few other floors below and above theirs followed suit, blazing outwards with flame and spraying debris like confetti towards the city street below. It took Twilight only a second to realize that, in their current position, they wouldn't have time to move out of the way and avoid being crushed. So she acted. With a blazing light from her horn, she and her friends were all encased in a protective bubble that shattered or deflected the falling debris like clods of mud striking a wall. Every strike against the shield made Twilight wince. Her magic struggled to withstand the weight and power of the debris striking it. Then the sensation of the assault slowed to a crawl and then dissipated entirely. Twilight struggled to keep her shield up for a moment as everything settled down. Once the pressure on the bubble was stable and everything on top stopped its shifting about, she could breathe a dry sigh of relief. She focused herself more properly, a great deal of the strain now reduced. There was a lot of rubble remaining on top of them, and Twilight knew it would take no small amount of effort to get them out of it. Every pony okay? Twilight asked. Yeah, physically at least, Rainbow Dash muttered. Pretty shook up, though. Lockwood breathed. Phew, well I think I've had my fair share of near-death experiences for the day. The group looked above them at the dome of magic that was sparking and flashing in areas where large chunks of metal and granite were pressing inward, trying to force their way to crumble into a natural resting position in the tiny alcove Twilight had made. Fascinating, Tick Tock old. I never pegged you to know a combat-orientated spell, Twilight. This is very advanced magic. Something that takes years of practice to study. Years of practice and study to do. And it's usually very personal, not something some pony can extend over a group, not without considerable skill. Combat-orientated, Twilight raised a brow. I found this spell in student savings, how to get through college without breaking the bank. It's supposed to save money on umbrellas. Tick Tock blinked, then rolled her eyes. No wonder Huss spends more time in his TARDIS than out in the field. The world is absolutely bonkers. How in the hay are we going to get out of here? Applejack asked. Oh dear, I hope we don't have to dig out, Rarity muttered. You're really thinking about? Applejack rolled her eyes. Rarity quickly cut her off. I'm referring to the difficulty of shifting this much weight without anything slipping and falling on top of us. Not to getting my hoofs dirty. Really, Applejack, you have to think practically every now and then. Rarity's right. Digging out isn't a very valid option here. Twilight frowned. There's a lot of debris on top of the shield. I can't let it go without risking us getting crushed. So I can't just blow a way through. And trying to teleport us out while keeping the shield up might be a little beyond me, I think. Allow me to help then. Tick Tock stepped forward, using her own magic. She helped to reinforce Twilight's shield. It seemed to put her under a bit of strain. I use these kinds of spells pretty often, though usually only on myself, so I won't be able to hold it for long, but it should be long enough for you to teleport us out, if you're as powerful as I think you are. What if I can't? Twilight asked in concern. Holding the shield isn't taking too much effort, but teleporting 9 ponies is a little advanced. Teleportation spells aren't exactly my forte, ironically enough, so you're going to have to, Tick Tock answered sternly. I was skeptical at first, but it seems that you really do live up to your title as the element of magic. I'll hold the shield as long as I can. You focus on the teleport, Miss Rarity, if you'd assist me. Me? Rarity blinked. I've never had any experience with this kind of magic before. I don't think... Listen, all I need you to do is reinforce my magic. Tick Tock swiftly explained. I'll hold the shield up, you just make sure your magic stays steady. Twilight seems to have enough magical power to sustain the shield on her own accord, but I don't think I can do it myself. I see. Very well. Rarity nodded. She flicked her own horn, and an aura of white energy surrounded Tick Tock's green glowing horn and invigorated the spell she was maintaining. Rarity was rather surprised that her magic was able to do such a thing so easily. Go on then, Twilight darling. I think I've got this covered. Alright then, Twilight gulped. Here goes. Twilight dropped her shield, and almost instantly Tick Tock's face turned from one of stern focus into strained, almost painful concentration. Rarity huffed as she too began to feel the intense strain on her own magical stores. And though her focus was elsewhere, in the back of her mind, a thought began to take hold. How much power did Twilight have? She knew she had a lot of ability, she'd seen it herself, but she never felt what kind of strain was like. She never felt what kind of strain... I don't know. Just a moment before, Twilight had been holding up this shield with a minimum of exertion for several minutes. And not just against the pressure of the pressing rubble, but against the intense amounts of force being applied to it in rapid succession. Now here she was with Tick Tock double teaming the same barrier spell, and struggling to maintain it for only a few seconds against simple weight. Twilight quickly let her horn begin to overflow with magic again, and engulfed herself and her companions in a white light. Tick Tock let out a yelp of pain as her shield began to snap, overexerting her magic. Rarity tried to flood more of her own magic into Tick Tock's spell, but she too felt her power begin to flicker and petter out like a dying little bulb. A bright flash, and the shield cracked away entirely, and the rubble fell inward. Twilight and her friends all breathed a sigh of relief. A good many yards away from where they'd been buried only a moment before. The rubble crashed and let loose a large cloud of dust and soot that spread many yards out into the street. The ponies looked around enough to notice that their surroundings were a mess. There was debris everywhere, and little fires had sprung up too. Some large chunks had even slammed into other nearby buildings and tore them apart like burning rocks being thrown through flimsy paper. "Come on, girls, we need to get moving," Flathead said sternly as he adjusted his hat. "Get someplace safe. I'll be back to you in a moment." "Where are y'all going?" Applejack asked quickly as Flathoof headed to the opposite direction, towards the building rather than away from it. "Work," he nodded. "Crowds are going to start forming. I gotta try and keep every pony calm and orderly until more NPBD units show up to help evacuate the building. Just get someplace safe for now, okay? I'll be back soon." "Can we be of any help?" Twilight stepped forward. I don't feel right leaving all of this disaster without trying to do something. I could have helped." "I think you've done more help trying to keep your friends calm," Flathoof pointed, particularly at Fluttershy, who seemed to be in a shaking panic. "Just get someplace safe. Let me do my job." Twilight reluctantly nodded, and she and Applejack returned to the huddled group. While the Pandemonium natives weren't particularly shaken by the surrounding sights, the 6 men from Ponyville certainly were. Twilight had only had time to shield herself and her companions, and hadn't extended the shield out enough to cover most of the rest of the street. They looked on in rather firm disbelief. Some ponies hadn't been lucky enough to get out of the way, and they could see the debris had crushed quite a few. Twilight made to try and help one nearby that looked like she could be saved, lifting up a particularly large piece of debris over them and chucking it aside, but instantly regretted the decision upon seeing what lay beneath. She struggled not to retch at the sight. Lockwood was the first to rush in to the injured mare, and quickly shooed both Twilight and Tick Tock away when they moved to follow suit. She had once likely been a creamy blue, but now is more black and red, covered in dirt and dust and blood that soaked her coat and her originally purple mane. "Oh my," he grimaced, removing his hat and setting it aside. "Miss, can you hear me?" The mare's eyes fluttered open, and she nodded. Lockwood smiled and sat down next to her, speaking slowly and softly. "Paramedics are going to be here soon, my dear. It's going to be okay." I can't feel my legs," she choked. Lockwood hid his nervous gulp as well as he could, trying not to look in the direction of what was left of her hind legs. "It's bad, isn't it?" Lockwood smiled. "Don't worry about that, okay? Save your energy. I'm here for you." The mare sniffed. I don't want to die," Lockwood frowned as she coughed up more blood than anything else. "I don't want to..." Her eyes dimmed, and Lockwood gave a sad, dejected sigh. He moved a hoof to her face and shut her eyes for her, then returned to the others. Fluttershy began to cry, shuddering in fear as she clung to Rarity, who tried her best to soothe the Pegasus. Though she herself wondered if she were the best qualified. she was rather shook up as well, not just from the near-death experience, but from seeing what would have happened to them had Twilight not been, well, Twilight. Applejack removed her hat and held it over her chest in a showing of respect for the ponies that hadn't been as fortunate as they had been. I want to go home, Fluttershy whimpered, clinging tightly to Rarity. There, dear, Rarity soothed. We all want to go home. I don't like this place anymore, Fluttershy continued to sob. I just want to go home. Hey now, Lockwood smiled. It'll all be okay. Bad things happen, but... I just want to go home, Fluttershy cried. I hate this place. It's so dark and every pony's so mean and rude. And there's nothing natural or nice and everything's scary and mean. I want to go home. I want to see my little angel again. Twilight looked on in dejected sorrow. Fluttershy was speaking what was on every pony's minds. She wanted to go home too. She didn't like this place much either. She never had, and was certain the others felt the same too. And she was worried so much about Spike, and her parents, and the princess, and her friends, his families, and every pony back in Ponyville. That worry was slowly growing inside her, like a virus. Because she knew the longer she stayed, the worse things were going to get back home. She knew the others likely missed their families now more than ever. And worse still, this world had just in a heartbeat gone from mildly inconvenient and perhaps bordering on annoying to openly deadly and hostile, and with no pony in sight they could hold accountable. And with no telling whether their journey to Utopia would succeed, and see them return to their bright sunny skies again, or end in tragedy. It was a rather sobering experience. Even Pinkie Pie was visibly shaking, holding tightly onto Rainbow Dash. Oh Dashy, I was so scared for a minute there. Like, real scared. The kind of scared that you can't just laugh away. She gulped. I don't think my pinky sense could have seen things like that. That was just a teeny bit scary or dangerous or anything like that. That was downright life-threatening. I want to think what would have happened if I didn't have these little feelings. Twilight stepped forward and gave Pinkie a warm smile. You should feel proud of yourself, Pinkie Pie. Your pinky sense just saved our lives. Yeah, kind of indirectly. You're the one who saved us with your fancy magic, Rainbow said bluntly. Twilight shot her a stern gaze, and Rainbow quickly waved her hoofs in defence. I didn't mean it like that. I know we all owe Pinkie Pie an awful lot too. If we hadn't all been out here talking about it, we might have been inside the building when it started blowing up. We might have been caught in the blast instead of just under a pile of rubble. But if we'd known what to expect right from the start, we could have avoided this, Twilight sniffed. None of us when have been in as much danger, and I could have helped. And she turned towards the ruined street with a severe look of regret. I could have saved some of these other ponies. Come on now, Twi. You know you had to act fast, Rainbow said, reassuringly. And who knows, if you'd tried to make that bubble any bigger and protect other ponies, you might have overexerted yourself, and then where would you be, huh? Twilight frowned. I should have paid more attention to you. Like I said I was going to. It's not your fault, Twilight, Pinkie said quickly. I know you guys don't always pay much attention, but at least you did when it mattered, right? But I should have listened to you right away instead of arguing about it again, Twilight sighed. She then turned to Pinkie Pie and gave her a firm but friendly look. From now on, Pinkie Pie, you get any of your little niggling feelings, you tell me immediately, okay? The whole journey we're about to embark on sounds awfully dangerous, and if your pinky sense can detect things like this, I want to know what else it can detect. You might just keep us alive through all this. That's putting a little too much pressure on her, Twilight, don't you think? Rainbow said pointedly. I know she just got a really big set of brownie points for this, but her pinky sense isn't always consistent. I'm not willing to take that risk, Rainbow Dash, Twilight said sternly. I'd rather listen to all of the silly ones and take them seriously if it means every now and then we're going to get one that keeps us from falling into a snake pit or getting crushed by a landslide. Not just getting hit on the head by an apple or walking into a door. Pinkie Pie nodded. If you say so, Twilight, sure. I'll speak up about them from now on. Good, Twilight smiled. Flathoof trotted over. Finally some extra patrol showed up. Typical NPPD response time, business as usual. We should be able to get back to trying to get you all... Oh dear. He blinked as he looked at Fluttershy, who appeared to be in even worse straits than he'd left her in. Is she okay? She's just in shock, Lockwood frowned. I think it's the first time she's ever seen any pony die. It's the first time for all of us, Twilight frowned. I've seen dead ponies before, but those were just pictures and lab specimens, not this. Flutterf nodded. It's not an easy thing to get over. Well, Lockwood sighed. So much for going to my place to scrounge up supplies. I wonder what in the world caused all this. Flutterf snorted. I'll take a look at the reports tomorrow, but if I had a guess or two, I'd think it was some sort of accident. He then turned to Tick Tock and narrowed his eyes. A rather convenient accident, if I do say so myself. I saw where that first explosion started, right on the same floor these 6 were living on, and in precisely the 5 o'clock position too. Tick Tock's eyes narrowed in response to this. Are you accusing me of something? Nope, Flathoof pointed, but you said you got in a bit of a scuffle, was it? With some pony that didn't like your line of work? Seems to me like you've made an enemy, Miss Tick Tock, and whoever they were just tried to take you out pretty handily, so that you wouldn't get away again. Just my observation, you understand. I'm no detective, but it doesn't take one to put 2 and 2 together. Tick Tock nodded in a rather grim acknowledgement. That does seem rather likely the case. He must have followed me here and knew he couldn't attack me with all the rest of you around. Bloody hell. Causing so much destruction and killing so many, just to get me. Talk about overkill. Well, that settles it then, Flutterf sighed. Change of plans. I'm going with you. Twilight was taken aback. You are? Applejack had a mixed expression. But didn't you say y'all had responsibilities here? See family and all? Of course I do, Flutterf nodded. I was just going to let you all head on off, though I made the decision with some difficulty. The wastelands alone are dangerous enough, but there's more places out there that might give you all some trouble in the long run. I didn't want to let you all leave alone like that, but it's not my place. It's your world. It's your world in trouble, not mine, and I do have responsibilities here, yes. But I suppose it's time I took a little vacation. Twilight blinked. Vacation? NPPD officers get 1 week of paid vacation every year, Flutterf explained. They just have to jump through the tons of hoops and stuff to get it worked out. And the officers don't even bother using theirs for a long time. It's cumulative, you know. I've been on the force for 3 years, so that means I've got 3 weeks stored up. Lucky coincidence. I guess I'll head over to the station now and put in my application. Snapshot should be able to get me through the process pretty quickly. Lockwood? Oh, sorry. Lockwood tilted an eyebrow. Yeah? Time for me to ask another favour of you. These girls are going to need to recuperate after an experience like that. And you're all going to need supplies for the journey. Take them to mid-north, to my place instead. Get them all rested up. Let my parents know what's going on. They'll be more than willing to help you if were you asking anyway. Twilight smiled. Really, Officer Flathoof? No sense in going to that much trouble. Burdening your family with us now. I'm sure Mr. Lockwood can find some pony to call in a few favours and get us all stocked up, right? Lockwood nodded. Yeah, I've got contacts in dollar manufacturing that can get us some food supplies and... Flo stabbed her hoof on the pavement. Look, Lockwood, just do this for me, okay? Your contacts might get you what you need, but just look at her! And he pointed to Fluttershy, who was still huddled close to Rarity, though her sobbing had died down to a good deal. She's a wreck. I know they need to make a rush job of this whole thing, but there's no sense in trying to push them too hard. Applejack nodded. I'm with old Flathoof here. We're all a little shook up after this, and we do need to stock up on supplies, right? I reckon getting rested up too would be a good idea. Don't y'all think? Twilight nodded. I can't argue with that, no. I just didn't want to place more undue burden on him, is all. But if you insist, and she smiled at Flathoof. Thank you, we all appreciate your offer. Lockwood shrugged. Well then, if we're all in agreement, let's be off. See you when you're all done with this paperwork, I suppose. Flathoof nodded. Right, Snapshot works quick. I should be right behind you. We can head out to the gate before nightfall and rest up at airship docking until morning. Get a fresh start, no worries. Right then, come on ladies, follow me. It's a long walk. As the group started following Lockwood, Flathoof reached out a hoof and stopped Tick Tock from doing the same. Hang on there, Miss Chronomancer. Tick Tock blinked. Something the matter? You're coming with me. Beg pardon? What, I don't get the rest and recuperate too? In case you haven't noticed, I'm a bloody mess. Flathoof glared at her. I don't care if you're missing all your hooves and manes on fire. I'm not letting you out of my sight. I sure ain't gonna let you head up to my family's home when you've got some sort of psychopath chasing after you. That's willing to blow up half a damn residential complex just to get one pony. No, you're coming with me. If this lunatic comes after you with just me around, that's a risk I'm willing to take. I'm not risking my family, my best friend, and 6 completely innocent strangers when I can take the burden up myself. You got a problem with that? Tick Tock nodded. Nodded? Not at all. You make a reasonable point. Very well then. Let's quit buggering about here and get your little vacation time settled, You said it wouldn't take very long anyway, right? Not at all, Flathoof shook his head. Lockwood's got his special connections. I've got mine. Snapshot will take care of this in a jiffy. Oh, something tells me she won't. What do you mean she never came in this morning? Flathoof glared. Firecracker half-heartedly paid any kind of attention to him. Like I said, big boy, she didn't come in today. Figures, leave me with all the paperwork and junk the same day there's some bombing or something down in Southeast Point. Do you have any idea how many forms I have to fill out for police reports? It's a paperwork nightmare is what it is, and... Flathoof pounded a hoof on the counter. I don't care about any of that. I want to know why no ponies bothered to find out why she didn't come in today. Surely some pony called her apartment when she was late this morning. Did she call in sick? Pfft, as if, Firecracker rolled her eyes. Probably too busy shacking up with that CIA stallion that was here last night. Either that or too busy crying her eyes out after he shot her down. I doubt she could have landed a stallion like that, like he did. I doubt she could have landed the stallion looking like he did. Flathoof raised an eyebrow. CIA? They had an agent here last night asking for Snapshot. Why? I don't know, I don't care. She huffed. Dumb little filly got all hot and bothered the second he walked in, too. I could see it a mile away. Maybe she got lucky and the idiot fell for that nerd's charm of hers. Flathoof glared. And no pony bothered to inform the chief about this, did they? Duh, why would I? Firecracker flickered her mane. Not my business. They were still in questioning when my shift was over. I didn't really feel like sticking around to see what they were talking about. What Snapshot gets up to in her own time is her own business. She's not my friend. I don't really... Flathoof sighed. Look, I'm just going to ignore the massive breaches in protocol that not reporting a CIA agent being involved here entails, and your complete disregard for Snapshot's well-being. But you're going to do me a favour. Firecracker rolled her eyes. Boys, you're all alike. Fine. I get off in a few hours. We can head back to my place and... What the... Flathoof shook his head wildly. What? No! You've got it all wrong. I need some paperwork filled. Not whatever it is you thought I wanted. What the hell made you think... wow. Firecracker was taken aback. And what is that supposed to... Whatever, as you can see, and she gestured to a huge stack of folders and papers at her side. With Snapshot not here, I'm working double duty on the busiest day we've ever had in months. No, it never actually said ever. I don't know. Busiest day we've had here in months. I'm a little backed up with paperwork as it is, so... Flathoof glared. Are you disobeying orders from your superior? I'm normally not much of a rules jockey, but considering the circumstances, I think I'll bring a few points. You're already in breach of protocol and by not filing a report on the involvement of a CIA agent in a case. That would be Snapshot's job. She's the one who... Flathoof cut her off. And Snapshot isn't here today, which means all of her responsibilities fall to you. As you've been keen to point out... At any rate, in case you haven't noticed, the Chief doesn't take too kindly to CIA agents sneaking around his offices as it is. But knows he can't bar them from entry, and that he can't just start rabble-rousing when one of them is snooping around. But he does want to know when they have any interaction with an officer. For breaching that protocol alone, you're already looking at getting fired. But and then disobeying a request from your superior officer for paperwork filing. I believe there's a rule somewhere about that too. Superior officers get priority on paperwork since we typically have important stuff to take care of. 2 rule infractions in the span of a few minutes. You're lucky I'm in a patient mood. Now we're going to have a disagreement here, or... What kind of paperwork are you taking care of? What kind of paperwork am I taking care of for you, sir? Oh, just vacation application forms, Flathoof waved. Starting tonight, actually. See to it gets through the system before the end of your shift. And I won't worry about the CIA thing, either. I'll make sure Snapshot fills out her report when she returns. Right, sir, of course. Firecracker nodded as she began to fumble around her desk for the form. The Flathoof turned and left her behind, then came over to Tick Tock, who had been waiting patiently at the bench nearby. Come on, we're heading for Southwest Point. What? I thought you said your family lived in Mid-North. Tick Tock blinked. I remind you, we're on a tight... I know all of that, but I've got to check up on something. Someone. Knock, knock, knock. Snapshot, are you in there? Flathoof called. Tick Tock waited patiently behind him in the stairwell as he knocked again on Snapshot's apartment door. She was rather relieved that Flathoof's friend lived on a lower floor rather than floors than the other mares had. 80 floors was much too many to climb, and even though she wasn't used to physical exertion and that kind of work, it still didn't make it enjoyable. Snapshot's 13th floor apartment was much easier to handle. He knocked again. Snapshot! Hello? If you're there, open the door. It's me, Flathoof. No response. I don't want to barge in there, Snapshot, but if you don't open up, I'm gonna have to. Snapshot? Okay then, I'm coming in. Flathoof signalled for Tick Tock to come over. You can't pick locks or anything like that with your fancy magic, can you? Tick Tock smirked. Fancy that. An NPPD captain asking me to commit a breaking and entering. Her horn began to glow, and so did the doorknob. She contorted her face into a firm concentration, licking her lips as she worked. Flathoof could hear a few subtle clicks as she snaps as the locking mechanisms of the door began to unlock one at a time. He could tell from Tick Tock's focused look, and she was having some trouble getting through the many extra security locks that Snapshot kept on her door. I don't know. As the sounds moved upwards, the glow of her magic shifted a little, and he could tell she was using it to manipulate the locks from the other side of the door. He was impressed, and a little bothered. "I wasn't being serious, you know," he said swiftly. "I was just going to bust the door down. Why in Equestria would you have any use for picking locks anyway, Tick Tock turns a little pink. I forget my keys a lot. I recognize some of these locks your friend uses. They're pretty standard issue stuff. Why does he have 6 bleeding locks on her door anyway?" Flat looked at the door for a moment, then raised an eyebrow when he saw where the glow from Tick Tock's magic was. 6? Yes, 6. And this last one was bloody well giving me a hard time too. But I've almost got it. Aha! Another click. See? Piece of cake. Hang on a sec. You said 6 locks, right? Tick Tock rolled her eyes. Again? Yes. What of it? Are you bad with math or something? Flathoof narrowed his eyes at the door. I helped Snapshot install these locks. She only has 5. His eyes widened a little. Oh, horse apples. Let's back away from the door now. Tick Tock tilted her head. What's going on? And her eyes widened as well. Oh, bugger! They quickly turned from the door and ran towards the stairwell, and only got enough distance from the door that the explosion behind them didn't engulf them straight away. Flathoof lost his footing, tripping on the last stair as a large chunk of the door shattered across the back of his head. He fell to the floor at the turn of the stairwell. Tick Tock, meanwhile, was much lighter in less convenient position. The force of the blast knocked her over the stairwell's railing, and she fell down 2 whole stories. Her foreleg slammed into the opposite railing and flipped over onto the floor. She groaned in pain in her head, the stiff ringing in her ears, and what felt like a possibly broken leg. She struggled to get up, and graciously accepted a hoof that reached out to assist her. Thanks. Don't mention it, chronomancer. Her eyes widened in an instant. She flashed her horn and let loose a burst of magic, forcing Shadowstep to roughly into the wall. He chuckled lightly as he frantically scrambled to get up. He drew a knife from his sleeve and one foreleg. He was on the offensive quickly, giving her little time to react in the extremely tight space. His dagger flashed brightly as it deflected off her shield. She staggered backwards a little, trying to gain footing in the narrow walkway. Another sharp dive. Again, she drove him off with the magical barrier. Another attack. He struck from different angles with every swipe, keeping himself unpredictable. She backed away, carefully stepping on the stairs behind her as his assault forced her around the corner. Why you keep coming after me? She snapped. Another strike. He began to force her down the stairs now. What did I ever do? Shadowstep chuckled. Why do you insist on asking? He feinted to her left to strike her. As she directed her shield, he quickly slashed instead of her right. She narrowly avoided getting a face full of silver steel, crying out as the blade slashed its way across her cheek. She staggered back a few steps and gasped, only losing her footing as the stairs ended and flattened out at the next floor. You're going to be dead in a few moments. What would that kind of information matter? She looked at him with a look of mixed fury and fear. His grin widened. Oh, the fire in your eyes is so bright. I'm going to enjoy snuffing it. Tick Tock strengthened her resolve and tried to strike out against him. She fired a volley of sparks. He twisted himself to the sides and avoided them with ease. "Come on now. Can't you just make this easy and let me kill you? I know all your little tricks now. I'm going to make this nice and personal." "Bugger off!" She blasted another bolt at him. And again, he merely shifted his weight to avoid it. He didn't let her keep up her approach and continued to force her back with another strike. And another. She deflected them each in turn, but he could see the wariness in her eyes, the shortness of her breath. "What's the matter, chronomancer?" he taunted. "You look tired. Perhaps a little dirt nap is in order." He swept forward again. His eyes gleamed as she did not seem to put up her shield in time. There didn't appear to be any shield at all, in fact. He narrowly hesitated and slowed his assault. For his effort, he was rewarded with a sharp pain shooting through his right wing. He slammed into her and collapsed beyond her further down the stairs. He did not pay it heed, though he knew the wound had been severe, deep. His flying was now severely hampered. She did not waste the advantage, and pressed quickly. Her telekinesis wielded a sharply torn shield of the rusted metal railing, as if it were a sword. I don't think I'm going to have time to read the rest. I'll put in the rest later, but I don't have time now. So yeah, I'll be back in, well, for you it'll be a second, for me it'll be later. Yeah. Right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Damn education, getting in the way of the good stuff. So anyway, let's get back. He found himself on the defensive. His grin returned and seemed to actually widen at the prospect. She was fighting pragmatically now. She was tired. She needed to conserve her magic, and telekinesis was easier than barriers. "You fancy yourself a swordsmare, hmm?" He taunted as he blocked her makeshift weapon with his dagger. "Maybe when you get a real sword, I'll consider you a threat." He forced his way upwards to meet hers. He felt her ragged breast against his face. Forcing him away with a push, she swung sharply in a downward strike. He stepped to the side to avoid it, clumsy. He lunged forward in response. She barely had enough room to avoid getting sliced across the eyes. The blade nicked her nose again as she ducked away. She was getting sloppy. She was more tired than she thought. A horizontal swing next, easy enough to duck under. Pathetic. An opportunity presented itself. Her wide swing left her open to attack. He flung his knife at her. It was sudden, unpredictable. She panicked and raised a shield, sending his weapon flying into the wall beside her. But the concentration on her telekinesis was broken. Her makeshift weapon fell into the emptiness of the stairwell's open center. He tackled her, forced her to the floor. She tried to struggle and force him off, but her energy bolt fizzled uselessly against his chest. Her magic had nearly dried up. "I've been looking forward to this," he chuckled darkly, pressing a hoof against her throat. "The chance to finally kill you and be done with this silly game we've been playing." He pushed himself up and put most of his weight into his hoofs. She choked and grabbed at him, but he was too heavy. "It's been fun, chronomancer." He pushed more weight downward, laughing again as he heard her ragged, throaty grasp for air. The tears in her eyes as she realised this was it. Her time had run out. Shadowstep's attention diverted behind him sharply, but he hadn't much chance to avoid the crushing body of red and black. Flathoof crashed into him and forced him against the nearby wall. Tick Tock took a deep gulp of air. "You're under arrest for the murder of an NPPD officer," Flathoof hissed into his ear. "And the countless other ponies at Southeast Point you killed in that explosion." Shadowstep laughed from under the large stallion.
He flicked his good wing as hard as he could, striking Flathurst's leg to throw him off balance. It was enough to let him squirm out of the hold. "Ah, you must be Flathoof," he smirked, as he distanced himself. "Snapshot spoke very highly of you." Flathoof barreled forward, reared and brought his forelegs down in a crushing motion. Shadowstep dodged backwards and found himself moving downstairs. Flathoof pressed his offensive. "Are you seriously considering turning me in?" Shadowstep chuckled. "As if I haven't broken out of a pathetic little jail cell before." "You'll be brought to justice for your crimes," Flathoof spat. "Ah, and here I thought you want revenge. Your girlfriend was such a sweetheart. She was just dying to get to know me better." He laughed loudly at his own joke. Flathoof grit his teeth and rushed forward with a shoulder tackle, easy enough to avoid. Shadowstep chuckled as he twisted around and bucked. He caught Flathoof hard in the chest. The red stallion staggered back a little, and was caught by surprise when Shadowstep rushed up the stairs at him. He swept Flathoof's forelegs, causing Flathoof to tumble down the stairs behind him. Flathoof grunted in pain as he hit the opposite wall, and Shadowstep had more than ample time to distance himself. "Well, officer, as delightful as this has been," Shadowstep chuckled as he drew his second dagger, "I've grown tired of all this falling around. Time to play for keeps. I wonder, when I'm done with you, who's going to take care of your crippled brother, Maybe I'll pay him a little visit and put him out of his misery." Flathoof glared at the Pegasus. Shadowstep's grin widened. "Oh, did I strike a nerve? I'll be happy to strike at more than that." He lunged forward and swung his knife at Flathoof's chest. A near miss, but he'd drawn blood. Flathoof backed down to the next set of stairs and ducked under another swing. He twisted himself around and tried to buck at the Pegasus. Shadowstep narrowly avoided it. Now in close proximity, he lunged again and tackled Flathoof from behind. They struggled, they grappled. Flathoof was stronger, was able to crush Shadowstep against the wall for a moment. Shadowstep was a dirty fighter and bashed his head against Flathoof's throat. He staggered and choked. Shadowstep pushed his sudden advantage. The red stallion found himself pressed with his back against the railing, Shadowstep leaning over him. "Looks like a long fall," he smirked. "A shame you don't have wings, like..." Shadowstep howled in pain. Flathoof wasted no time in capitalizing on his opportunity. He sunk down and kicked his legs as hard as he could, sending Shadowstep careening over the railing. The Pegasus struggled to right himself as he fell, but his right wing was injured, and his left wing was now had his dagger, which shimmered a dull green, embedded in the joint. His back slammed into the railing on the next floor down. He fell straight to the bottom. Flathoof breathed deep, and chanced a glance to the stairwell above. Tick Tock limped down to meet him. "Are you okay?" she asked hoarsely. "I'm fine. We should get a move on," Flathoof coughed. "He mentioned going after my family." "Can we rest a bit?" she coughed. "There's no way he..." "Survived the fall? Right. You can take that risk if you want. I'm not about to do that." Alright, so that's chapter 6. Things are getting interesting. I don't think we've sort of come to the main point yet, because in the cover art we can see sort of the main 6 facing counterparts, but we haven't really come to that yet, so I'm not really sure. But it's getting interesting nonetheless. Join me next time for more, hopefully. Keep spreading the magic of friendship, and I'll see you next time.